I'm going to start with the bones that make up the arm. Your upper arm is made of the humerus. Okay, notice one end of the humerus is rounded. This is the proximal end. The other end, which is unrounded, this would be your distal end. When looking at the humerus, on an anterior view, you can see two bumps. These are called tubercles. And if you look on the distal portion, there's two small little divots called fossa. Okay, when you know that you're looking at the anterior view, notice that the head has this slight angle towards this direction. It's going to fit into the socket of the shoulder, so this is going to be your right humerus. Okay, the bones making up your lower arm, you have the ulna, which has this U shape to it. The U-shaped portion is your proximal end. The ulna is on the medial portion of your forearm. Looking at the ulna might be hard from the picture. You want to make sure anterior view, the scoop is going to be facing out. And then on one side, a little piece of the scoop is missing. That's where the other bone, the radius, fits in. So this would be your right radius, because the ulna again goes on the medial side. So if the divot is on this side where your thumb would be, that is where the radius should be. Okay, this is the radius. The proximal end has basically a perfect circle. It makes up the head. The distal end is very knobby. You do not have to know right or left of the radius.
No.
Okay, for the hand, everything above my finger, these are carpal bones. They are considered short. You have 8 of them. I'm not going to make you memorize the name of each one. From between my hands, 2 hands, these are what we call metacarpals. These are the portions that actually make up your hand. We name these starting with the thumb. Let's see, this is going to be a right hand. This would be metacarpal 1, 2, 3, 4, and your one going to your pinky would be the 5th metacarpal. Okay, so everything from the metacarpals out, those are phalanges or fingers. Those are named the same way, 1 with the thumb, 5 with the pinky. Except the thumb, each phalange actually has 3 segments. An individual of these bones is called a phalanx. So all the phalanges other than the thumb are made of 3. This is closest to the hand, so this would be considered the proximal phalanx. This is the middle phalanx, and this would be the distal phalanx. And since this is the pointer hand, those would all be 2. Okay, moving to the leg. In your upper leg, you have the femur. Okay, the rounded end of the femur is the proximal end. The very knobby part is the distal end. Okay, with the femur, how you can tell anterior surface 2 ways. From the distal end, there is this smooth surface called the patellar surface. On the proximal end, it is pretty much smooth right by the head. Okay, just like with the humerus, when determining right or left, we have to angle it up. Sorry, I don't want to get my head in. Okay, you are going to make sure that you're on the anterior surface, and again, the head is going to angle towards where it fits in the foot socket. So this would be your right femur. The posterior femur has 2 ridges, and it has this big gap. That's how you can tell the difference between the 2. 2 bones making up your lower leg are the tibia. Notice the tibia is very large. It kind of has this T shape to it. The big T knobby part, this is the proximal end. This would be the distal end. With the tibia, how you can tell you're looking anteriorly, you have this bump called the tibial tuberosity, which you can feel just below the patella. Okay, when this is in view, you're looking at the anterior surface. You then want to go to the proximal end and look for this small projection. This is called the medial malleolus. This makes up the little bump that's on your ankle. The tibia is the medial bone, so because of that, this would be your right tibia. Fibula is a very thin bone. It really is not weight-bearing at all. You don't have to know right or left. You just have to know that the more rounded portion is the fibular head, which is proximal. The more flattened portion is the lateral malleolus, which makes up the other bump that's on your ankle. Okay, for the foot, you have tarsals, which make up the ankle. You only have 7 tarsals. Okay, with carpals, you have 8. You do need to know 2 of the names of the tarsals. That would be the one that makes up your heel, called the calcaneus, and the one that actually has all the weight distributed on it, called the talus. Just like with the hand, the first long bones after the ankle, those are metatarsals. Again, you number 1 for the big toe, 5 for the little toe. Each one of the toes is a phalange, which each segment being called a phalanx, which is also numbered 1 through 5, 1 being the large toe, 5 being the little. And again, just like with the fingers, having a proximal, medial, and distal portion. Okay, you have the scapula. This is a posterior view of the scapula where the humerus fits in. You know it's posterior because of this large spine that you see here. Okay, the anterior view is basically all smooth, flat. If you look at this portion, this is the actual socket of the shoulder. This is where the head of the humerus fits in. You want to make sure that's lateral. So looking posterior, this is the lateral side. This would be your right scapula. This is the, commonly we call collarbone. You have to call it clavicle. You do not have to know the difference between right and left. You do need to know the difference between the sternal end. Sternal end is more knobby, kind of a triangular or pyramid shape to it. And the more flattened end is what connects to your scapula, which would be the lateral surface. Okay, this is a pelvic bone. This is called either the os coxa or it's called coxal bone. Sorry. It's made of 3 fused bones from my fingers up. So this whole portion, this is called the ilium. It's considered a flat bone. Between my fingers, this portion, this is the pubis. At the end of this, this is where your pubic symphysis is, where you have fibrocartilage. And then the last of these bones is called the ilium. All of these bones kind of fuse at this one where the socket of the hip fits in, which is called the acetabulum. You want to make sure the socket is lateral when naming right or left. The pubis, where the pubic symphysis, should be medial. So this would be your left coxal or os coxal bone. Also want to make sure always that the ischium, which has this bump, it's called the ischial tuberosity, is always posterior. This is what you sit on when you sit down in a chair. Okay, this is your sternum. It has 3 different parts to it. The most superior part is called the manubrium. This is called the body of the sternum. And then it's very delicate. It's broken off here. It's just a kind of like worm-like extensions called the xiphoid process. Very small round bone. This is your patella. You do not have to know right or left. You just need to be able to classify it as a sesamoid bone because it's embedded in tendons. I think that's it.
Thank you.